One day, as usual, I got a call from Sean. I knew without even listening. It must be about asking for more money. As soon as I picked up the phone, Sean's irritated voice came through. "Have you transferred the money yet? Don't forget your role as a mother." "Oh, then I guess I'll just quit being your mom," I declared casually. Then Sean, caught off guard, let out a dumbfounded, "Huh?" It must have been surprising for him, as I usually kept quiet. I continued, mentioning a certain person's name, telling him that I had already told everything to this person. "Why you?" Sean started to panic. "Soon, let's have a direct conversation, all of us. About your misdeeds, and about this Omar General Hospital. Until then, keep quiet." Ignoring Sean's yelling, I quietly hung up the phone. Everything was already set in place. He should just wait in fear until that day. After all, the most terrifying thing in Sean's life is just around the corner. My name is Natalie Omar. I'm 45 years old this year. I'm a part-time office worker at a hospital and a working mom. There are 4 of us in the family. My husband Michael, who is 10 years my senior, and our 2 children. My eldest son, Sean, is 23 and a college student, and my daughter Anna is 20. Though, the only child I gave birth to is Anna. Sean is Michael's child from a previous marriage. And this stepson is currently the bane of my existence. Let me explain this step by step. I first got married when I was 24 years old. Soon after, I gave birth to my daughter, Anna. We were living happily, but when Anna turned 5, that all changed. During a family trip, we were involved in a car accident. My husband and I were only slightly injured, but Anna suffered a severe spinal injury. She was left almost completely paralyzed from the waist down, and our lives were turned upside down. I quit my job to care for her every day. I always wondered why such a thing had to happen to us. Maybe fed up with those dark days, one day my husband left a divorce paper and walked out. With one painful event after another, I was completely broken, both physically and emotionally. That's when a caring friend introduced me to Michael. He was 10 years older than me, a single father and divorced, just like me. We went out to eat a few times and really hit it off. I told him everything about Anna's condition, and Michael listened seriously. Then, he referred us to a hospital that was at the forefront of spinal injury treatment. The hospital was called Omar General Hospital. It was run by Michael's father, my father-in-law Omar, who was the chairman. Michael was a doctor at Omar General Hospital. There had been no hope for recovery from the spinal injuries until now. But at Omar General Hospital, which researches regenerative medicine, patients from all over the country were visiting, desperate for a cure. If there was even a slight chance that Anna could walk again, I immediately transferred her there. I also, following Michael's suggestion, switched jobs and started working as an office worker at Omar General Hospital. It was close to home and more accommodating, making it easier to care for Anna, he suggested. The hospital is technically still under the chairmanship of my father-in-law, who suffered a stroke a few years ago, and since then, the management has gradually been transitioning to Michael. He told me that he holds various authorities at the hospital. Eventually, Michael and I got married without any issues. Of course, I had met his child from a previous marriage several times. Sean is a 10-year-old boy. He is an honor student and very polite. He also adores Anna. I thought we could get along well with these two. It should have been that way. Yet, I never dreamed we would face such a situation after getting married. It happened one day, sometime after I had remarried. Sean's friend was over at our house to play. As I was about to knock on the room to offer some snacks, I overheard an unbelievable conversation. "Man, a test tomorrow? Such a pain. My mom's gonna get mad if I score badly," his friend said in a gloomy voice. Then, Sean answered proudly. "I'm set. I snuck a copy of the test from the office." "Seriously?" "Yeah. Pay me $20, and I'll let you see it too." "Lucky. That really helps. Thanks." I was shocked to hear their conversation. Looking back, I should have entered the room right then and confronted them. But I was so stunned by the situation that my mind went blank. I could barely stand. After staggering back to the kitchen, it seemed like the friend had gone home after a while. The next day, Sean scored perfectly on the test. Michael praised him, saying, "Well done," but I felt conflicted inside. Was the story about cheating I overheard true? I haven't been living with Sean for long. Feeling hesitant to confront him directly, I decided to first talk to Michael about it. That night, when it was just the two of us, I brought up what had happened. However, he didn't believe me at all. "What? You're saying Sean cheated? What are you talking about? That can't be possible." "But I definitely heard him talking about it with a friend." Michael glanced at me and sighed. "You must be mistaken. I have always intended for Sean to eventually take over the Omar General Hospital. From a young age, I've made sure he was well educated for this responsibility. He wouldn't engage in such disgraceful behavior." Michael seemed to doubt me from the way he spoke. Indeed, I had no proof. He must have thought I was making false accusations against his beloved son. Michael raised his voice. "You're out of line to doubt Sean. I won't allow you to look at him that way just because he's my stepson." "I'm sorry." Though I wasn't satisfied, I apologized just to avoid making things worse. Then, the next day, when Sean came back from school, he looked at me with a cold gaze. "You told Dad something weird yesterday, didn't you?" "Well," had Michael told him about my suspicions? I stumbled over my words, and Sean laughed. "Dad trusts me completely, so it's useless whatever you say." Then he confidently walked towards his room. But he stopped halfway, turned around, and glared at me. "Don't pull anything like that again, or I won't forgive you. I'll kick you out just like I did with my previous mom." "Wait, your previous mom?" Without answering, Sean quickly went into his room. What does that mean? Was Michael's ex-wife also driven away? I was horrified. But Sean is still just a child. I told myself there was nothing to be afraid of. Yet, I felt an inexplicable fear creeping up my back. That premonition turned out to be spot on. This incident was merely a prelude to the true nature of Sean that would soon be revealed. Fortunately, or perhaps unfortunately, I haven't come across Sean talking about cheating with his friends since then. But whether he has reformed is unclear. Just because he doesn't talk about it at home doesn't mean he isn't up to no good at school. Of course, I have no way to confirm this. And part of me was content as long as our home remained peaceful. However, Sean's mean streak gradually became apparent. From a certain point, my belongings started to go missing. I put my wallet here. Where could it have gone?" "Come on, get it together." After frantically searching, it would turn out to be in the very first place I looked. This happened several times. "It's because you didn't look properly." Michael would scoff, while Sean would smirk. I intuitively knew Sean had done it. But if I mentioned it to Michael, he would probably dismiss it as my misunderstanding again. There are plenty more episodes like this. For instance, during dinner when everyone is gathered around the table. When Michael and Anna aren't looking, Sean would sneak his favorite dishes from my plate. I was surprised, but then I saw Sean sticking out his tongue at me. This might be dismissed as a light prank of an elementary schooler. I thought it wasn't worth scolding him over. But that night, Anna said, "Sean always seems to have such a scary look in his eyes, doesn't he?" "Maybe. I guess." I replied ambiguously. "Maybe it's just me thinking, but since Mom and I suddenly came to live here, he might be irritated thinking Dad has been taken away from him." Indeed, Anna's point made sense. Perhaps he was taking his frustration out on me. It's quite common for children. Sean would grow out of it after a while. I hoped so. But that hope would be shattered. Eventually, Sean became a middle schooler. Yet, he hadn't changed at all. In fact, it got even worse. When Michael wasn't around, he'd openly mock me. Showing me his school materials, Sean would snicker. "I got into the top in the class. You wouldn't be able to solve this problem, Mom. You're just a hospital clerk. There's a difference between you and someone like Dad, who's a doctor." This kind of behavior was routine, and sometimes he would even falsely report things I hadn't said to Michael. "Dad, Mom said the other day that I'm just a nerd. Isn't that terrible? She's probably just jealous because I'm smart." Denying it was futile. Afterwards, I would be the one Michael scolded for saying such things to a child. It was truly exasperating to continue dealing with this. Certainly, boys this age naturally go through a rebellious phase. Talking back to parents isn't unusual. But there's a malice in Sean's behavior and words that can't just be dismissed as a simple phase of rebellion. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore and said, "Enough already. What joy do you find in belittling people?" Then Sean gave me a condescending look. "Oh really? You think you can talk to me like that? Anna goes to her hospital, right?" "Yes, but what about it? Maybe I should tell Dad you've been horribly harassing me. He'll believe me for sure. Then you'd get divorced. Anna would be kicked out of our hospital. No other place offers the cutting-edge treatment we do, right?" What the? To think he'd hold this over my head, what a child. Rehabilitation could be done at any hospital, but advanced regenerative treatments are only possible here at Omar General Hospital in our area. And Michael himself is taking care of Anna. If he gets a bad enough impression of me, it's conceivable he could refuse Anna's treatment. Additionally, because it's cutting-edge treatment, insurance doesn't cover it. Actually, Michael has been covering the costs out of his own pocket. And I myself work in a very accommodating role at Michael's hospital. The thought of losing all that. The possibility of Anna walking again, and the medical costs. Whether I, now older, could find such a flexible job again. Weighing all these factors, I had no choice but to comply with Sean's demands. Since then, Sean's harassment of me worsened. Whenever I complained, he'd threaten, "Oh, you don't care what happens to Anna? What a despicable person." And he's in cahoots with Michael. After all, Sean would tell Michael fabricated tales about me, completely ruining Michael's opinion of me. "You only care about your own daughter. Don't you have any love for Sean? I thought you'd love him the same, but I'm disappointed in you," Michael would say. Because of all this, I feel like the atmosphere in our family has turned sour. My heart has always been heavy. But eventually, Sean would go to college. That would mean he'd live on his own. The harassment towards me would surely decrease. I told myself to just endure until then. And time passed. Finally, Sean became a college student. As Michael had hoped, he was studying in medical school. Eventually, he would probably take over Omar General Hospital. Currently, he lives alone in a luxury apartment provided by Michael. I had finally escaped from Sean. I thought so, but then, the phone calls started coming. Of course, they were from Sean. He would say, "Send me money." Apparently, he was running short on money for his social life. He receives a set allowance each month, which Michael pays. He should just ask Michael directly for more money. But it seems he doesn't want his father to know he's been splurging. So, when he runs out of money, he comes asking me instead. "Auntie, where's the money?" By this time, Sean no longer called me Mom. He called me Auntie. "I just sent you some," I say, frustrated. "Yeah, but I need a bit more. Don't you get it?" "Oh right, you wouldn't understand. You're not so smart after all. Stop insulting people already." I couldn't hide my anger, and Sean seemed amused by it. "Oh? You sure you want to say that? Once I become a doctor, I'll be taking over our hospital right away. If I stop Anna's treatments, her chances of recovery will be gone, you know?" Unforgivable. Sean is a devil who exploits people's weaknesses. He's no son to me. But when I think of Anna, I cling to even the slightest chance that her legs might recover. We've tried various treatments so far, but with no promising results. It seems that over time, it gets harder to move paralyzed parts. But still, I want Anna's legs to start moving. Driven by this hope, I sent part of my earnings from my part-time job. These days have been repeating, and I've become completely exhausted. I feel like my cheeks have hollowed out. Looking in the mirror, I sighed. Lately, I have no appetite, and the threats from Sean have left me drained, both mentally and physically. Seeing me like this, Anna approached me with concern. "Mom, are you okay?" Yes. "It's nothing. Shall we start dinner soon?" In a rush, I tried to cover up, but Anna, looking determined, said, "You're being threatened by him, aren't you?" "How did you know that?" "I overheard you on the phone a while back. This can't go on. We need to tell everything to Dad." "But..." "Mom, it's okay." Anna spoke firmly and grasped my hand. "Maybe we won't be able to get the cutting-edge treatments at Omar General Hospital anymore. But if my lower body doesn't improve any further, so be it. I've come to terms with it. I can do more for myself now since my upper body works, and I've been getting computer-related certifications. Once I graduate high school, I can work from home. I'll make sure I'm not a burden to you. I'm sorry for all the sacrifices you've made for me." "Anna." I cried. I had always been desperate to improve Anna's mobility, even a little, despite her paralysis. I thought I would do anything for that. But Anna was already looking ahead. She had given up on her immobile lower body and was doing her best with what she could do. I hadn't even noticed her strength. I wiped away my tears. Then, Anna and I talked. Even if we told Michael about Sean's actions, it's likely he wouldn't believe us. We might even end up being treated as the wrongdoers. We needed solid evidence to be convincing. "So, besides that, there's something else I need you to look into, Mom," Anna said with a serious expression. "What?" "Well, I've become friends with other patients during rehab, and we talk from time to time about this hospital." Anna's revelation was something I had never even considered. "I understand. If what you're saying is true, it's serious." Anna nodded. "First and foremost, we need to gather evidence. It might be better to speak to someone higher up than Michael and get them on our side." Deciding this, we started to take action. I clenched my fist, vowing firmly. No more bending to Sean's will. It's time to fight back. Some time has passed since then. It took quite a while to gather the evidence. It was tough getting here, but everything is now in place. I've already contacted someone and briefly shared the gist of the story. They've agreed to my request to have a meeting with everyone and will call for a gathering soon. Suddenly, I look up at the calendar hanging in the living room. It's been 13 years since I remarried. It's strange to think how much time has passed. Anna has graduated from high school and has started working from home in IT, leveraging her computer skills. She seems happy to be able to contribute to society. "I'm really glad I can earn my own money. I was always so dependent on you," Anna said shyly, to which I shook my head. I am the one who is grateful to her. It's because of Anna's emotional independence and cooperation that this plan was possible. I couldn't have done anything alone. Most of the plan has progressed smoothly. Now, all that's left is to call Sean. He has become a fifth-year medical student. The medical program is 11 years long, so he must be busy with his clinical rotations right now. It seems he has cut down on his extravagant outings. But instead, he has gotten hooked on online casinos where he can gamble easily. Consequently, he's still always short on money. Just last week, he demanded an additional allowance. But I didn't transfer any money. Naturally. There's no need to comply with Sean's demands anymore. Suddenly, my smartphone vibrates. It's a call from Sean. I know without answering. It must be about the allowance that wasn't transferred. "Hey, Auntie." What about what we talked about last week? Sean started with a grumpy tone as soon as I answered. Last week? I don't understand what you're talking about. I feigned ignorance. Immediately, Sean's irritated voice came through the phone. Have you not transferred the money yet? Don't forget your role as a mother. Oh, then I guess I'll just quit being your mom, I declared casually. Sean, taken aback, let out a dumbfounded huh? It must have been surprising for him, as I usually kept quiet. But I no longer need to pretend, so it was only natural. The only person who can call me mom is Anna. You are nothing of a son to me. Just a parasite leeching off money, aren't you? A gambling-addicted med student dropout. Sean was momentarily silent, not understanding what had been said to him. However, as he grasped my words, he exploded in anger. Hey, watch your mouth, old lady. Do you even realize what you're saying? I'll have Anna kicked out of our hospital right now. Even over the phone, I could tell Sean was furious. Probably red as a boiled lobster. Imagining it, I couldn't help but laugh. Do you even have the authority to do that? What are you talking about? I'm the heir to Omar General Hospital. You must be out of your mind to talk to me like that. Sean's voice was irate and noisy. I moved the phone slightly away from my face and calmly stated. For now, you're just a student. Besides, it's your grandfather, the chairman, who decides whether you'll succeed him or not. Huh? Why are you talking about Grandpa? I chuckled softly. Then, as if he realized something, Sean flew into another rage. You! Have you been filling Grandpa's head with nonsense? Answer me. I spoke quietly. Soon, let's have a direct conversation, all of us. About your misdeeds, and about this Omar General Hospital. Until then, keep quiet. Ignoring Sean, who was still ranting, I hung up the phone. He should wait trembling with fear until the day we have our discussion. After all, the most terrifying event in Sean's life is yet to come. A few days later, on a bright sunny morning, I was in the chairman's office at Omar General Hospital. Sitting before me was my father-in-law, in his wheelchair. Due to his age and illness, it was difficult for him to walk. Since his wife passed away early, he usually lives with Michael's sister, my sister-in-law. Today, out of concern for his health, I asked my sister-in-law to accompany him. It might turn into a long discussion. It would be serious if his condition worsened midway. And there was another person. Michael sat beside the chairman, looking out of place. He must have guessed from the summoning that this was not going to be good news. He was probably fretting and feeling anxious by now. Then, Sean arrived late. His face already pale. As Sean took his seat, my father-in-law looked at me and asked, "Is everyone here?" "Yes." "Shall we get started?" "First, this," I said, placing some documents and my smartphone on the table. The documents were a claim for compensation. All the verbal abuse Sean had hurled at me over the years. Demanding compensation for the emotional distress it caused. And a detailed account of the money he had wheedled from me for his gambling. Along with a repayment plan. Sean panicked. Wait a minute. Sure, I might have said some awful things when I was upset, but that's just a normal parent-child argument, right? Compensation, that's ridiculous. And the money, I only asked for it as living expenses. His attempts to explain were clumsy and laughable. I looked at Sean with disdain. It's too late for any pretense now. It's just a normal parent-child argument, and just allowance, huh? I scoffed and started the recording app on the table. Every time Sean called, I recorded the conversation. When I played the audio there and then, everyone was stunned. Sean's voice mocking me with unbearable words and shamelessly begging for money. He even bragged about the online casino he's currently addicted to. My father-in-law, glared at Sean. I thought you were seriously studying, but to hear you've been leeching off Natalie and dabbling in such things. Under my father-in-law's gaze, Sean raised his voice. Stop it. What are you doing, playing this and making a joke out of it? This is just the tip of the iceberg. Isn't there something even more embarrassing about you? What? What are you talking about? Cut it out. Initially, I planned to play this audio for Michael to show Sean's true character. Then, I would declare that I could no longer stay with someone who continuously defends Sean, and he would agree to a divorce. That was the plan. However, as I investigated something Anna asked me to, I uncovered misdeeds far worse than these, involving not just Sean but Michael as well. This was beyond a family issue. It needed to be brought to someone in a higher position. So, I decided to enlist the support of my father-in-law, the de facto manager of the hospital, despite his illness and retirement status. I laid out some documents on the table. A copy of Michael's bank account statements. The moment they saw that, the color drained from Sean and Michael's faces. At the sight of it, both Sean and Michael's faces turned pale, beyond just turning white. Michael has made several irregular payments to a certain individual. The amounts could certainly be considered large. The recipient of these payments was a professor at the medical school where Sean was studying. This money, what is it for? Natalie, when did you? Michael, in a dry voice, stared at me with an expression of agony. Surely, it's not tuition, right? Transferring directly to a professor's personal account, that's odd, isn't it? This is personal money, isn't it? Sean fell completely silent, sweat beginning to bead on Michael's forehead. Indeed, Sean had gained admission to medical school through Michael's connections, having paid a professor as a return favor for this convenience. Sean attended the same medical school from which Michael had graduated. This professor, also an alumnus, was friends with Michael. The dubious transaction likely facilitated Sean's backdoor admission. After discovering this, I hypothesized as much. Luckily, I had a friend working as an administrative staff at the medical school, who I asked to check Sean's exam papers from 5 years ago. My friend confirmed that Sean's scores were below the passing threshold for that year. It turned out my suspicions were correct. Sean had been admitted despite not meeting the grade, through payments to the professor. It was a clear case of backdoor admission. Sean never had the qualifications to enter medical school on his merit. Even as a child, he was prone to cheating, a habit that surely came in handy later. Michael must have realized deep down that Sean lacked the capability to become a doctor. However, driven by the desire to see his son succeed and take over his legacy, he chose to deny the truth and fabricate lies to cover up. The payments to the professor continued even after Sean's admission, likely to ensure he passed the exams required for progression in his studies. This professor is a friend of Michael's. It would be easy for him to boost scores in exchange for money. Given the demanding curriculum of medical school, it's unlikely that someone as undisciplined as Sean could have advanced without such help. Despite this, the fact that he was able to progress smoothly through his studies suggests that some accommodations were certainly made. Gathering all this evidence took a considerable amount of time. But it was worth it. Although I had briefed my father-in-law about these findings, hearing them detailed again was difficult for him. With a vein throbbing on his forehead, my father-in-law was quietly fuming. "This must be some kind of mistake," he stammered to his father in a raspy voice. But it was too late. "Playing such a foul game. I didn't raise you two to become such corrupt people," my father-in-law thundered, and both Michael and Sean cringed. They were visibly shaking. But there was still more. Stumbling upon the backdoor admission was just incidental while investigating something else entirely. The real issue was something that could jeopardize the very existence of Omar General Hospital. This was information I had not yet shared with my father-in-law. Revealing what lay ahead could shock him severely, potentially worsening his health. "Father-in-law, please stay calm and listen," I said to him gently, slowly taking out new documents from my bag. "Look at this." I placed the documents on the desk. They were the treatment data of spinal injury patients attending Omar General Hospital. Michael grasped what this indicated. "Look closely at these numbers, they've been tampered with, haven't they?" My father-in-law looked disbelieving. This was the result of what Anna had asked me to investigate that day. As I began to explain in detail, here was the story. During her visits to Omar General Hospital, Anna had become friends with other patients. As they exchanged information, it became clear that none of them were seeing the expected results from their treatments. It could have been dismissed as unfortunate but normal, as spinal injuries are known to diminish in prognosis over time. Years after the accident, the chances of Anna and others fully recovering were low. Still, they clung to the slightest hope and continued their treatments. However, Michael's narrative was different. "It will definitely heal, the numbers are improving," he repeated over and over, almost feverishly insisting, "This treatment is unquestionably the right one." At first, I thought he was reliable. I believed he was someone I could entrust Anna's care to. But years went by with no results. Anna was not the only patient who failed to recover. Would a doctor really persist in recommending a treatment that shows no results? Representing patients who began to question, Anna decided to investigate this issue. Direct questions to Michael were met with nothing more than "It's fine, just trust me." So, she asked me, working in hospital administration, to discreetly look into it. At Anna's request, I examined the hospital's computer data. With Anna's IT expertise guiding me, I accessed electronic health records and treatment data. That's when I noticed the data had been tampered with. Actual values had been altered to appear more favorable. In other words, despite ineffective treatments, they were made to seem effective. Omar General Hospital had become famous for its cutting-edge treatment of spinal injuries. As a result, patients from all over the country were drawn to it.
"What are you talking about? I am renowned as a pioneer in advanced treatments. This treatment is revolutionary, it is bound to succeed. So a little alteration in the numbers is no big deal,"
Michael defiantly shouted, his anger barely contained. My father-in-law, with anger-filled eyes, spoke quietly. "So, you started putting all this energy into the treatment just to satisfy your own vanity as a doctor?" Michael stuttered, clearly hit by the accusation. Though my father-in-law held the title of chairman, he had been gradually stepping back from the management of the hospital due to illness. In his stead, Michael had taken control. In the midst of this turmoil, Michael likely developed a desire to make a name for himself as a renowned doctor. He promoted the hospital as conducting cutting-edge treatments and manipulated patient data to appear as if they were recovering. Many patients came, and the hospital's finances flourished. As Michael continued his vehement rant, I could feel my anger rising.
"It's a misunderstanding. I am truly committed to this medical research."
"Really, even though it shows no real effect?"
"What do you know? It just takes time for the effects to become clear. I'll be presenting this at a conference soon, and I will become even more famous. Then everyone will admire me, and you'll be the ones regretting it."
As Michael continued his vehement rant, I could feel my anger rising. Since this scandal came to light, there was something I had been wanting to ask. Looking Michael in the eye, I began to speak quietly. "Michael, before we remarried, you were so attentive to my concerns, weren't you? You said you wanted to help Anna and moved her to this hospital. I thought it was all done out of goodwill, but could it be, you only thought of Anna as part of an experiment to make yourself famous?" That is. It seemed I had hit the mark again. I sighed. I couldn't believe it. I had never seen someone so consumed by their own dark vanity. I exclaimed,
"Anna is not your lab rat for human experiments. And I am not Sean's punching bag. I'm absolutely sick of you both. To top it off, you exploit patients who come to this hospital out of desperation from all over the country with useless treatments and swindle them out of their money. Stop making a mockery of people."
I forcefully slammed the divorce papers on the desk.
I've already discussed this with a lawyer. You'll be contacted by the lawyer regarding the terms, so just be prepared for that. Anna and I are leaving the house now. Goodbye.
Michael and Sean were too shaken to speak. Their minds likely consumed with self-preservation. The cold atmosphere generated by my father-in-law, my sister-in-law, and me lingered long in the chairman's office. Shortly thereafter, Anna, other patients, and I accused the hospital. We exposed the tampering with treatment data and medical records. Despite the lack of recovery, they had lied about the effectiveness of treatments. This scandal broke publicly, and the hospital was constantly in the news. Michael was arrested and sentenced to 2 years for evidence tampering. My father-in-law decided to close the hospital. Already burdened by illness and previously faltering management, he no longer saw the need to keep it open. Especially not for Sean to take over as a doctor. The hospital plunged into debt due to the scandal, facing numerous lawsuits from patients and my compensation for damages. Exacerbated by the hefty payoffs to a professor to secure Sean's position and advancement in medical school, the financial strain became unbearable. Sean, unable to afford the high medical school fees, dropped out effortlessly. A fitting outcome, indeed. The thought of such a person becoming a doctor is frightening. Afterwards, both Michael and Sean were disowned by my father-in-law. Post-release, Michael disappeared. Once celebrated as a pioneering doctor, he now fell to just another ex-convict. The fall from grace was evidently hard on him. Rumors say he begged various hospitals to employ him. But his reputation as a corrupt doctor preceded him, and no offers came. He might do warehouse work, they said, and so he settled for back-office roles like managing medication stock or other menial tasks. Often scolded by younger supervisors. It's a miserable state, but entirely self-inflicted. I hope this serves as an opportunity for him to cleanse even a sliver of his tainted vanity. As for Sean, he chose to work in a casino after dropping out. Typical of Sean's superficial character. He managed to draw attention as a former medical student and became famous for a while, attracting some customers. However, his casino was eventually busted for illegal operations. Losing his job and desperate for money, Sean even resorted to borrowing from loan sharks. And was ultimately kidnapped by a criminal organization. He was put on a fishing boat, forced into harsh manual labor. It's a pitiful end, but I think it's for the best. After everything was settled, my father-in-law apologized to us. I'm sorry. My illness led to neglect in management, and I let Michael run wild. I'm truly sorry for the pain I caused you, Natalie, and Anna, he said repeatedly. The story Sean once mentioned about Michael driving out his first wife. It turns out that was true. Sean was a troublemaker even before I remarried him. Whenever his mother, the first wife, scolded him for his misdeeds, he would complain to Michael, who blindly trusted his son, inadvertently making the first wife seem like the villain. Unable to bear it, she eventually left the house. Michael had always claimed he was too busy with work, but the truth was as I had discovered. Around the same time, my father-in-law fell ill, which meant he couldn't focus much on managing the hospital or our family matters. He expressed disappointment in how he raised Michael and Sean. As a form of atonement, he helped find a reputable rehabilitation center for Anna and a better job for me that wasn't cutting-edge medicine but provided solid rehabilitation care. My sister-in-law, living with my father-in-law, also firmly said, I will take responsibility and watch over Michael and Sean in place of our aging father. Now, Anna and I have rented a new apartment and are living more comfortably than before. Thanks to the good job my father-in-law helped me find. We're in a barrier-free apartment, enjoying peace like never before. Anna seems to enjoy her rehabilitation at the new hospital. Even if her legs don't work, just having her alive is enough for me. This incident has made me deeply appreciate this. Anna smiled joyfully. Seeing it warms my heart every time.